This is Mobashir for the Hook. Delighted to be joined by Akin from
The Athletic Network.
the Athletic Network. Sorry, the
No,
name
you're good.
evaded me. We're here at Bird and Bird for the Athlete Investor Summit event. Firstly, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to interview
Pleasure,
you.
pleasure.
How are you, bro?
Really good, mate. Really good. Paul, he's been a good friend of mine for a few years now. I was actually at the first ever Athlete Investor Summit in 2024, I think that was, in King's Cross. And so to see him just elevating, keeping evolving is unbelievable. So yeah, buzzing to be here, mate.
Perfect. And if you introduce yourself to the channel, a
Yeah.
little bit more about your agency and what it is you do.
Yeah, man. So I always start by telling people I'm a failed rugby player. I played to an okay level, but ruptured my Achilles at about 24 years old. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do, to be fair. Knew I had the gift of the gab, East London boy, so, we're born with that. We come out the womb wheeling and dealing. And so I made the transition to brokering partnerships and sponsorships for a lot of the players that I grew up playing with and against. And so 10 years later, that's what we do. I broker sponsorships for football, rugby and cross-category Olympic athletes. And over the years, we've done deals for Adam Peaty, the Olympic swimmer, Sha'Carri Richardson, US sprinter, a number of England rugby players, some football boys, big musicians, Travis Scott. So it's been a lot of fun, mate.
Wow. And then you talk about having a rugby career. Was life after rugby something that you sort of had in one mind, or was it always just all eggs in the rugby basket?
Mate, listen, I loved the game, right? But I knew I wasn't going to get to Christian Wade level, who's a top player who's still playing now for Newcastle. I knew I wasn't going to get to Anthony Watson level, who's speaking today. But what I was very aware of is that I had a great network of athletes, but also brand partners. Anyone who knows me, they'll tell you I'm in the mix, right? I'm out and about. I'm not afraid to put my hand out and say hello to someone. So when it became clear that rugby wasn't going to be the future for me, the transition was pretty easy actually. But I always say to people, I had a target, right, that I was heading towards. That initially was being a rugby player. And when that didn't happen, I pivoted. But you need to have a goal of some sort and then kind of adjust from there.
Was the goal obviously the I guess the low hanging fruit was you played rugby.
Yeah.
You had lots of friends that were in rugby.
Yeah.
So okay, well, I guess I'm gonna put two and two together and try and represent them. Where,
Yeah.
where did you learn the art of negotiating deals? Because from what you've told me, like there wasn't a
Education.
an
Yeah.
education
Yeah,
behind.
yeah, man. I had to learn on the fly, mate, to be brutally honest.
Okay.
There's
Is that the best way to do it?
I think so. I think so. The best way to learn how to swim, you can read about swimming, you can watch YouTube videos about swimming, you can listen to podcasts about swimming. You're only going to really know what to do when you get in the water. And so I didn't take too much time dilly-dallying, worrying about being embarrassed or how am I going to look. I said, listen, let's dive in. Incorporated the agency name, started going to an events. And again, I had a bit of a head start because I knew a lot of players on a personal level. So that was my kind of mini superpower, if you will. But my advice to anyone, whether it's sports agency, entrepreneurship in general, start now, today, this second. Send an email that is terrible because then you have something that you can build upon. If you're just sitting back daydreaming about how it's going to be when you eventually meet that CMO or CEO, you're going to struggle. You need to get in the mix.
You know, on that, from when you started to what it is today, did you always have the goal that would end up today, or has that goal almost like pivoted and shifted? Because I guess you have to adapt to the market
Yeah,
and
man.
surroundings.
COVID came, right? 4.5 years into me having the agency. Relationships change over time as well. You make mistakes, right? So all of that contributes to evolution. I can only speak for myself, but typically where you start and where you envision yourself heading, there's a whole lot of up and down in between and zigzags. I never thought that 3.5 years into having the agency, I'd be brokering deals for a Lamborghini, for example. I didn't even really understand licensing and things like that. But the opportunity came, and we ended up doing probably £4 or £5 million worth of deals for Lambo. So yeah, be open and agile to adjusting for sure.
It's quite interesting. I guess that's the reason why you should start now, because you can have a perfectly created plan, spend 6 months on it. 2 months after that plan, like, you know, something can go west, and Just start.
Mate, listen, I can only reiterate what I've said. If you sit there thinking about what it's going to be like when you get in the water and start swimming without actually getting in and start swimming, you're always going to be behind the person who just dives in, even if they look messy, even if they look like they're potentially drowning, right? They're learning, right? They're building, they're getting calloused and building a carapace and armor that they'll be able to use down the line. Whereas the person who sat there and waited is still going to be in the same position, right? Because they haven't actually put the work in for sure.
And then on that, what was it like brokering your first deal? Was the dopamine rush the same as when you played, or can nothing compete with rugby?
Man, listen, I'm blessed now every time I get a deal done because it's not easy, especially 6, 7, 8 figure deals. They're hard to come by. And in this market with, YouTube streamers now, like there used to be a time when an athlete, okay, was up against other athletes in terms of branding and opportunities. Now they're up against the 16-year-old Twitch streamer, the musician, the TikTok star, the chef who's become an overnight celebrity. So for me, I feel so blessed every time a deal does get done because I know how hard it is, right? And even to be honest, when a deal doesn't happen, I still feel blessed because I've got the ability. I'm doing something that I love. I'm living also almost like inside an answered prayer, if you will. So it feels great. But yeah, to answer your question, it's a very different high playing sport and brokering deals. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I can do what I do now and not have my nose broken, don't get muddy. So I'm definitely living the best of both worlds for sure.
In the environment that you said, how can athletes compete with the streamers, the YouTubers, the 16-year-olds? How do they differentiate themselves?
Storytelling. Yeah, plain and simple. Jake Paul, Erling Haaland, Floyd Mayweather. I'm just picking out random names. These talents have hit the heights that they've hit because they tell really interesting, engaging stories. You know about where they're from, what they've had to overcome to get to where they are. You know about their family life to a certain degree. You know about, Erling Haaland's on YouTube, for example. There's never been a better time to tell stories as an athlete. And if you don't, you're going to be a bit behind those who are doing it. Because, it's funny, I was actually looking at an old email from about 10 years ago, just yesterday, from a friend of mine who now heads up marketing for Moët and Chandon. But she at the time was at Tag Heuer Watches. And I proposed a player to her for an ambassadorship. And in the email, she said, look, I don't know about him, but I'm going to do my research and maybe there's going to be something down the line. And I thought that was interesting because it's important to know about the talents, first before they can ever be ambassador worthy, if you will.
Perfect. Can you go into a little bit about how you source deals? Like, do most of the deals come to you? I guess you're dealing with high profile stars, so
Yeah.
I guess you got inundated with companies. How do you differentiate the good from the bad?
Listen, man, it's there's no one size fits all formula for brokering a deal. For starters, some are inbound. I'll get an email from a brand or even from a player saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a football player or a rugby star to be the face of campaign XYZ." A lot of other times, I'm in the mix and I'm knocking on doors, right? That's the majority of it, outbound. Hey, I'm working with these players or this talent, this tournament. Are you interested in partnering? And then sometimes it's a mixture of the two, right? But yeah, there's no one set formula. You just have to be like constantly sniffing the air and thinking, right, okay, where's opportunity? I always say the best agents, in my opinion, are able to predict, not react, right? So they're able to say, right, in a year's time, this is where the relevancy is going to lie, as opposed to a lot of agents who sit there twiddling their thumbs and then they react when baller league becomes a thing or whatever. So yeah, for any aspiring agents, that's definitely a USP. Try and peek around the corner and be one step ahead of where both the brands and the rights holders and the players are, right? And then you'll be ahead of the curve.
I mean, you've been in the sport you've been in the industry, sorry, for a good while now.
Yeah.
Like, do you think the brand has more of the leverage, or do you think the athletes are becoming more and more powerful?
That's a great question, man. I think it's sport dependent, to be brutally honest. In a sport like boxing, for example, I'd say that the brands probably have the power because, first of all, boxers only fight, what, at most twice a year,
Yeah, yeah,
three max.
yeah.
Therefore, their visibility is not super high in peak moments. But in a sport like football, well, if you're Erling Haaland again, you're playing 45 times a year, lots of visibility moments. Your brand is global because football's obviously ubiquitous. So it's sport dependent to answer that question. But that's another reason why it's important to analyze and not try to, treat every situation with the same formula. It doesn't work, right? The same ingredients you use for a red velvet cake aren't the same ingredients that you'd use to make a bagel, right? So it's the same with deal making. The same way that you'd broker a deal for Emma Raducanu, it's going to be way different from what you do with Usain Bolt, etc.
You think that's what separates the good agents from the bad? Because I guess when you're starting out, maybe some early stage might treat it all the same.
Yeah, 100%. You have to find your voice, your flavor. That's with anything. That's with broadcast and media. That's with agency. As a player, if you follow a formula and it's a formula that isn't true to you, at a certain point, you're going to get either found out or things you're going to hit a plateau. You can hit a plateau regardless, but it's better to hit a plateau when you're trying and being true to you as opposed to just, oh, so and so agent did it that way, I'm going to try it that way. So, yeah, definitely try and be your own steward and your own kind of captain of your own ship.
Perfect. Final couple because I know
Go on.
I need to go. How do deals look now? Because I see athletes all the time negotiating equity stakes. Like, how do you navigate that from equity to a traditional sponsorship deal, for example?
Again, it's a great question. We've got a player that we work with, Anna Markovic, a women's football player. Great brands, really personable, smart as well. And, the way that we look at an opportunity for her, again, will be specific to the situation. Sometimes it actually makes more sense to not take any cash, right? And to take more equity if you believe that the brand is going to grow and that you can add value to it. Sometimes actually the opposite is true, right? And sometimes it's better to take that cash up front because maybe you feel like there's just you want more of a short term boost to your profile or whatever. Sometimes you don't take anything, right? It's like you're in that environment or you're in that deal for other reasons. Maybe it's networking, right? It's like being on the board of a company, that sort of thing. So trying to find your own formula, again, is really, really important. But yeah, you're right. The market right now, we're seeing equity deals, equity plus cash, still seeing cash only deals as well. And yeah, it's an interesting time to be a deal maker for sure.
Perfect. And then finally, we're here at this event.
Yeah.
How important are these events to, I guess, for like I guess people like yourself to network, but also for people who are new, people who are experienced? I guess it's good all round, right?
Mate, listen, like I said, this is his third year doing this. And sometimes events, as I'm sure you know, can be a bit formulaic, a bit flat. But what's beautiful is Paul puts the right people in the room, people who want to be here, first of all, and who are open to exchanging ideas. And that's the most important thing. Because if you've got a group of 50 people, but all of them are keeping their cards close to their chest, you're probably not going to leave with much value, right? You might have wasted a few hours. Whereas with these, there are always good people to talk to meet, to hopefully do business with, and more importantly, who you just feel good being around. So, yeah, these events are very important, and looking forward to more of them for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers, brother.